Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something that, well, you might think is just for TV dramas, negotiation, but the techniques we're looking at developed in really intense FBI hostage situations. They actually hold keys to improving, well, pretty much every interaction you have.
That's exactly right. We've got this source material. It's an excerpt from a really fascinating book, actually. It takes us behind the scenes with a former lead international kidnapping negotiator for the FBI.
Wow.
Yeah. And you'll hear how lessons learned dealing with, terrorists and bank robbers offer these surprising insights into human psychology, communication. Our mission today is really to uncover these powerful nuggets so you can be, better informed, more effective wherever you are.
Okay, so one of the first things that really jumped out at me was this story about our guide, this FBI agent. He finds himself in what he calls a really intimidating hostage situation, but not like guns and masks.
Right. Not the usual kind.
No, he's across the table from these Harvard negotiation giants. Robert Mnookin, Gabriella Bloom, serious heavyweights. And he says he felt like, a former Kansas City beat cop facing these academic powerhouses.
Yeah, you can imagine. What's fascinating there is this real clash of philosophies.
Yeah.
Harvard, back then, was all about rational, logic-based stuff,
Yeah.
BAT&A.
Right, best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Exactly. And ZSOPA, the zone of potential agreement.
Yeah.
Very analytical. But this FBI expert, he comes in with all this real-world grit.
Mm.
And when Mnookin challenges him, basically says, okay, get a ransom out of me, his response is just dead simple. He just asks, how am I supposed to do that?
That's it.
That's it. And that one question, it seems so harmless, right?
Yeah.
But it apparently caused this pause, this shift. It showed the limits of just being purely rational when, real human interaction is involved.
And it wasn't just a fluke either. The source says a year later, 2006, he gets into this Harvard Law winter course full of, brilliant Harvard students, hotshot students.
And the best and brightest.
And he apparently just destroyed them in the practice negotiations, even when they knew all the tricks. And his secret, he apparently said something like, I'm just asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a passive-aggressive approach. I just ask the same 3 or 4 open-ended questions over and over. They get worn out answering and give me everything I want. It sounds almost too easy.
It does, doesn't it? And it really points to this huge shift in thinking, moving away from seeing people as just like rational actors.
Yeah.
And what this means for you is massive. You're not just dealing with logic, you're dealing with feelings, biases,
Right.
all that messy human stuff.
Right.
Understanding that is, well, step one. Around the same time, actually, over the University of Chicago, you had Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, economists,
And
psychologists.
sort of behavioral economics.
Exactly. They basically launched that field,
Yeah.
proving that humans are very irrational beasts.
Mm.
And crucially, that feeling is a form of thinking. It's not separate.
Kahneman, of course, wrote Thinking Fast and Slow later on. System 1, System 2.
Right. System 1, fast, gut feeling, emotional. System 2, slow, logical, deliberate.
And the key insight is that System 1, the emotional gut feeling, it guides and steers our rational thoughts. So if you can tap into someone's System 1, their feelings, you can actually guide their rational System 2.
Precisely. And that explains why that simple question, how am I supposed to do that, worked on his Harvard counterpart. It hit the emotional mind, made the guy feel his offer wasn't good enough, so his rational mind coughed up a better one.
It's like bypassing the logical defenses.
Kind of, yeah. And this whole realization had a massive impact on the FBI itself. After things like Waco, Ruby Ridge in the 90s, those traditional negotiation methods, they just failed badly.
Yeah, those are disasters.
Huge failures. So in 94, they formed CIRG, the Critical Incident Response Group. Their whole job was to reinvent crisis negotiation, shift away from that quid pro quo, tit-for-tat bargaining.
Because most situations weren't purely rational demands.
Exactly. They realized most police negotiations involved emotionally driven incidents. So the new focus had to be on psychological skills needed in crisis intervention, making emotional intelligence absolutely central. The source says a successful hostage negotiator needs emotional intelligence on steroids.
Okay, emotional intelligence on steroids. So how did they actually do that? What were the first practical tools that came out of this new emotional focus?
Well, one of the first big ones is something they call the voice.
Yeah.
There's this story from a 1993 bank robbery in Brooklyn. The agent needed to keep the hostage taker, Chris Voss, talking, calm him down.
Right, de-escalate.
So he switched into what he calls a late-night FM DJ voice. You know the one?
Oh, yeah. deep, slow, reassuring.
Exactly. Deep, soft, slow, reassuring. Designed purely to lower the tension, create a bit of calm. And when Watts asked about the previous negotiator, he didn't get into it. He just used that voice and said, Joe's gone. This is Chris. You're talking to me now. Like a statement of fact. Calm, downward inflection. No argument.
That really hits home, doesn't it? It's not just what you say, it's how you sound, your whole demeanor. That hits first. Our brains pick up on that feeling, that intention, way before the words even register sometimes.
Absolutely. We're wired for it. And that leads into another technique. Mirroring. It sounds simple, maybe even a bit weird, but it's just repeating the last 1 to 3 key words the other person just said.
Just the words, not the tone or anything.
Just the words. The focus is purely on their words. It's not mimicry. It's more like active listening confirmation. It subtly signals I'm listening intently to you, and it encourages them to elaborate, to keep talking without you even asking a question.
Okay, so back to that bank robbery. When Watch came back to the phone, the agent mirrored him about a van.
Yeah, Watts mentioned a van, a blue and gray van, and asked if the agent knew about it. The agent just mirrored a blue and gray van. And apparently, Watts got rattled.
Just from that.
Seems so. Later, the agent admits he made a mistake, mirroring with a yes-no question. Are you Chris Watts? Which is easy to deflect. Watts says no, then, okay. The agent corrects, mirrors again. No, you said okay. Even that simple mirroring of okay apparently unnerved Watts. It just shows you're paying super close attention.
Okay, so voice, mirroring. What else is in this emotional toolkit?
2 big ones. Tactical empathy and labeling. Now, empathy here isn't about feeling sorry for them or agreeing with them. It's about understanding their perspective, where they're coming from.
Seeing the world through their eyes, basically.
Exactly. The source mentions neural resonance, how our brains actually start to align with someone else's when we observe their face, gestures, tone. It builds an unconscious connection. And labeling is where you articulate that understanding. You say things like, it seems like, or it sounds like, or it looks like you're feeling X.
You put a name on the emotion you're sensing.
Precisely. And the amazing thing is, the source says labeling an emotion literally disrupts its raw intensity.
Yeah.
It shifts brain activity from the amygdala, the fear center, to the more rational parts. It calms the storm so they can think more clearly.
That's fascinating. Just naming it takes away some of its power. There's that example from the Harlem standoff in '98. The agent just kept labeling what he sensed from the guy inside. It looks like you don't want to come out. It seems like you worry that if you open the door, we'll come in with guns blazing. It looks like you don't want to go back to jail.
Over and over.
And after 6 hours of silence, a curtain moved. It got through. And then there's the Girl Scouts example. Less dramatic, but just as effective, right?
Absolutely. The fundraiser senses hesitation from this donor who seems completely stuck. So she labels it, I'm sensing some hesitation with these projects.
Simple as that.
And the donor immediately opens up. I want my gift to directly support programming, not anything else. She felt understood. And she ended up writing a check, not even tied to a specific project, just because, as she said, you understand me.
Wow, that you understand me moment is huge.
It really is. And there's a related technique, kind of a preemptive strike, the accusation audit. This is where you list out all the negative things the other side might be thinking or feeling about you or the situation before they say them.
You call out the elephant in the room first.
Exactly. Like the agent calling that FBI official in Canada after basically sneaking into the country. He started the call with something like, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Just owning the mistake up front.
Disarming.
Totally. It diffuses the anger because trying to deny a negative accusation often makes people believe it more. But if you name it yourself calmly, it drains the power right out of it.
Okay, this is all really shifting my perspective, especially the idea that we shouldn't always aim for yes. Society tells us yes is the goal, right? Get to yes.
Right. Getting to yes was the big thing for a long time. But this approach argues yes can be a trap, often is. The agent learned the real power of no from an FBI psychologist, Amy. He wanted to get into hostage negotiation.
And she just shut him down.
Repeatedly. Firm no. Told him, volunteer at a suicide hotline. Then come talk to me. No guarantees. Got it. That rejection, that firm no, became this huge lesson for him.
How so? What's the power of no?
Well, first, no isn't failure. Often, it's just the start of the real negotiation. Saying no makes the speaker feel safe, feel in control. People actually need to feel they have the right to say no.
Okay.
And when they say no, they're telling you what they don't want, which helps you figure out what they do want. Think about all the times you've said yes just to get someone off your back. The source calls these counterfeit yeses.
Ah, yeah, the telemarketer example. Yes, yes, interesting. Click.
Exactly. Or the suicide hotline caller who says, great call, thanks, but doesn't actually change anything. Real commitment, true buy-in that often comes after you've given them the space to say no and feel heard.
I love that practical tip they mentioned, the email magic for people who ghost you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Sending an email with the subject, have you given up on this project? Or something similar. It taps into that fear of loss, fear of being abandoned.
Right. Loss aversion. People hate losing out more than they like gaining. And it almost always gets a response, usually some version of, no, no, wait, I've just been busy. It reopens the door using the safety of no. Really clever.
Oh, so if no is the start and yes can be fake, what is the goal?
The ultimate goal, the sign of a real breakthrough isn't yes, it's that's right.
That's right.
Yeah. That's the moment your counterpart feels completely, utterly understood. Like you've just perfectly articulated their situation or feelings back to them. It's often an epiphany moment for them. And that's when real shifts in behavior happen.
Like the football player, Brandon. Being told you're right didn't work.
Nope. Because it wasn't his realization. But when the coach labeled his pride in hitting hard, saying something that reflected that.
He had that that's right moment.
And then he changed. Exactly. Same with the pharma sales rep. Struggled until she summarized the doctor's approach, saying, you seem to tailor specific treatments. And the doctor's response, that's right, sale made. Because he felt truly seen and understood.
Okay, that's right moment feels like the holy grail here. Let's talk about some broader strategies. Compromise. We're always told to compromise, meet in the middle, win-win.
Yeah, forget win-win according to this source.
Yeah.
It warns strongly against just splitting the difference. They use that analogy of the shoes. Husband wants black shoes, wife wants brown for his suit. They compromise.
He wears one black and one brown shoe.
The worst possible outcome. Compromise often leaves neither side satisfied, and it can totally screw you if the other side is playing win-lose and just takes your compromise as a starting point.
Oof. Okay, so avoid compromise. What about deadlines? They always feel so stressful.
Right. We panic. But the source argues deadlines are often arbitrary, almost always flexible. They rarely have the dire consequences we imagine. And it flips the old advice about hiding your deadline. Remember Herb Cohen in Japan? He revealed his deadline. They used it against him.
Yeah, standard advice is keep it secret.
But the thinking here is deadlines cut both ways. If time runs out for you, it runs out for them too. Hiding your deadline might actually put you at a disadvantage because you lose the chance to see if their deadline pressure is greater than yours.
Interesting. So be aware of deadlines, but don't be ruled by them. And maybe don't hide yours automatically. What about the word fair? That word gets thrown around a lot.
Oh, yeah. It's super emotionally loaded and often used manipulatively, like a judo move, to throw you off balance. We just want what's fair.
Right, puts you on the defensive.
But you can flip it. The agent recommends starting with something like, I want you to feel like you are being treated fairly throughout this, so please stop me anytime if you feel I'm being unfair, and we'll address it.
Ah, you preempt it. You frame yourself as the fair one.
Exactly. It encourages them to be direct if they feel something's off, and it takes the weapon away from them.
Clever. And this ties into understanding what people really want, right? The emotional drivers to bend their reality.
Absolutely. It's knowing what business you're really in. The babysitter isn't just selling childcare. She's selling
a relaxed evening for the parents, peace of mind.
Exactly. The locksmith sells security, not just a lock. Once you figure out that deeper need or fear, you frame your offer around that. And this hooks directly into loss aversion. Again, people work harder to avoid losing something than to gain something equivalent.
Okay. How do you use that practically?
Well, there's that example of anchoring emotions. The agent was consulting in the UAE had to tell these contractors they'd only get $500 a day, not their usual $2,000.
Ouch. Tough message.
Very. So he starts by acknowledging it's terrible news, validates their likely reaction. Then he says, still, I wanted to bring this opportunity to you before I took it to someone else.
So the frame shifts from losing $1,500 to potentially losing the entire $500 if someone else gets it.
Bingo. Suddenly, it's about not losing the $500. And apparently, every single contractor took the deal. No counters, no complaints, masterful framing.
Wow. Okay, and what about making the first offer? Usually they say, let the other side go first.
Generally good advice, but you can go first strategically by establishing a range with a high anchor. Instead of, I want $110,000, the MBA student example is, well, at places like X Corp, people in this role get between $130,000 and $170,000.
You're anchoring their perception of value way up high without making a direct demand.
Right, you're bending their reality about what's reasonable. And always think about non-monetary stuff. Things that are cheap for them but valuable for you, like that magazine cover story, instead of a bigger fee. Get creative.
Okay, so we have the emotional tools, the framing strategies. But how do we actually ask for things or dig for that crucial information without sounding like an interrogator?
That's where calibrated questions are key. Normal questions often get you a simple yes or no. Not very useful. Calibrated questions usually start with what or how. Sometimes why, but you have to be careful with why, because it can sound accusatory, put people on the defensive.
Why did you do that? Yeah, sounds bad.
Right, but what makes that important to you, or how can we solve this problem? Those are open-ended. They invite the other person to think and talk, expand.
And the source says the real magic of how questions is that they subtly ask for help.
Exactly. Asking, how am I supposed to do that, or how can we make this work, gives the other person the illusion of control. They feel like they're solving the problem. It stops them from just digging in their heels, unbelief, and gets them engaged in finding a solution, often your preferred solution.
Like the patient ripping out his 5E, the doctor didn't order him to stay.
Nope. He asked calibrated questions. What do you hope to accomplish by leaving? How are you going to get your biopsy results?
And the patient basically talked himself into staying, solving the doctor's problem for him.
Precisely. The patient owned the solution because he felt he came up with it. It was the same in that Ecuador kidnapping case. The team didn't demand proof of life. They kept asking, how do we know Jose is okay? And how are we supposed to pay until we know Jose is okay?
Putting the problem solving onto the kidnappers.
Right. It bought time, sowed confusion among them, some even gave up, and eventually Jose escaped. It shows communication isn't just talking, it's this information-gathering process that vests your counterpart in an outcome that serves you.
Okay, so calibrated questions get you moving, but once you think you have an agreement, how do you make sure it sticks? The source says, yes is nothing without how.
Absolutely critical. An agreement means nothing if it doesn't get implemented. This is where the rule of three comes in. You need to get your counterpart to agree or confirm the same thing at least 3 different times in slightly different ways.
3 times. Why 3?
Because, as the source says, it's really hard to repeatedly lie or fake conviction. You might use a calibrated question, then a summary, so what we've agreed is, then maybe a label, that sounds like you're comfortable with, to get them to affirm it multiple times.
Yeah.
It locks in the commitment.
That makes sense. Locks it down. And it's not just about the words they say, right? We need to pay attention to everything else.
Definitely. Remember the 7-38-55 rule.
Yeah, 7% words, 38% tone, 55% body language. Huge emphasis on the nonverbals.
Right. So if the words say yes, but the tone is hesitant, or the body language screams no, you need to address that disconnect. Use a label. I heard you say yes, but it seemed like there was hesitation in your voice, or you agreed, but you look a little uncomfortable. What's going on? You call out the incongruence.
Got it. And what was that about pronouns?
Oh, yeah. Subtle, but potentially useful. Someone who uses I, me, my, a lot might actually have less authority in the final decision. They're speaking for themselves. Whereas someone who avoids first-person pronouns, uses we, or just talks impersonally, might be the real decision maker or speaking for the group. It's just a clue, something to notice.
Interesting. And that last little tip, use your own name.
Yeah, it sounds minor, but just like using the hostage's name, humanize them. Using your own name occasionally, get the Chris discount,
Yeah.
can build connection. It makes it a bit more personal, less transactional.
Okay, this brings us to maybe the most intriguing part, black swans.
Yes, the ultimate leverage. This comes from Nassim Taleb's work. Black swans are those hidden pieces of information, maybe only 3 to 5 key things, that if you uncover them, they would change absolutely everything about the negotiation. The unknown unknowns.
And the agent's firm is even named after them, the Black Swan Group.
That's how important they think finding these is.
The source uses that tragic William Griffin case from 1981 as an example of missed black swans.
Right. Police thought it was about money, a standard hostage situation. But the black swan was, he'd already committed a double homicide before taking hostages with no money demand. That changes everything.
And the other clue they missed, in that rambling note he read.
Yeah, I had to kill them because I'm a man of God.
It wasn't rational. It was driven by his own internal, deeply disturbed worldview. That was the real driver, the hidden information.
So the key principle here is it's not crazy, it's a clue.
Exactly. When someone seems irrational or acts illogically, don't dismiss them. Assume there is a logic, you just haven't found it yet. Their behavior is probably driven by hidden constraints, unmet desires, maybe just bad information they're working with. Your job is to dig to find out what makes their crazy make sense to them.
And the positive example of finding a black swan was that Watson standoff in D.C., the veteran holding the bus. Yeah, brilliant example. He was talking about military principles. Withdrawing with honor after 3 days seemed kind of ritualistic. But Agent Winnie Miller listened really closely and picked up on something subtle.
He's a devout Christian. That was the black swan.
The key insight.
Right. So she suggested telling him, tomorrow is the dawn of the third day. That's when Christians believe Jesus ascended. If Christ came out then, why not you?
And it worked. He surrendered. Yeah. Just connecting to that hidden belief system.
Incredible, isn't it? It shows the power of knowing their religion. Not literally religion necessarily, but understanding their core worldview, what makes them tick. Other ways to find black swans. Look for similarities, common ground, the similarity principle, people trust their in-group. Appeal to their hopes and dreams. And get FaceTime if you can. Those unguarded moments, beginning and end of meetings, you see things, nonverbals, that you'd otherwise miss.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive really shows negotiation isn't just about winning arguments or following logical steps. Not at all. It's this dynamic, emotionally intelligent dance. It's about discovery, understanding the human on the other side.
And these lessons from the FBI's most extreme situations, they're incredibly relevant for everyday life, aren't they?
Absolutely. They give you the tools to get past those fake yeses, build real understanding, handle tough talks, and find that hidden info that can unlock everything.
And ultimately, it seems like mastering this stuff is about getting over our basic fear of, well, conflict itself. As the source says, it's not the person across the table we fear, it's the conflict. Our sweaty palms are just our tribal instinct to get along kicking in.
That's a great point. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? The real challenge, I think, is to start seeing conflict not as something scary to avoid, but as an opportunity. An opportunity to connect, understand, and find better outcomes using empathy and curiosity. So the question is, how will you take these tools and apply them to your next difficult conversation?